Welcome back. Guess what the Defense Department just admitted? That President Biden botched Afghanistan withdrawal was a propaganda gift to China. And yes, it was a debacle. Imagine that. Naturally, the White House is pushing back on the bombshell report from their Pentagon and their Secretary of Defense, who presumably signed off on this. And when I asked National Security Council Coordinator, former Admiral Kirby, now retired, about this on Fox and Friends, well, he disagreed.
Our over-the-horizon counterterrorism capabilities are actually quite effective.
So he's the only one. If you had over-the-horizon capabilities, you would have killed more than one, because thousands are back.
Brian, it is not about killing every single terrorist around the world on any given day. We watch these threats carefully, and when they develop to a degree where we think our national security is at risk, we take action,
Our
and we did
assets
that.
have left. Our assets have left.
I'm not saying that, we have every single asset available to us that we did a year or so ago, but we have enough, and we're working to improve them every single day.
Joining us now to talk about this, Florida Congressman who has a definite different view, who sits on the House Armed Services Committee, former Green Beret himself, now in the National Guard, Michael Waltz. Congressman, your reaction to the fact that they're still trying to pretend that that wasn't the biggest disaster in American military history?
Brian, I know thousands and thousands of veterans all over the country, when they saw that garbage coming from John Kirby from the White House, they wanted to rip their TV off the wall and throw it out the window. It's shameful. It's disgusting. And it's a huge reason why Biden lacks so much credibility now. When you stand before the world and the country and say this was an outstanding success, this was great. My infant son could have planned a better withdrawal and a withdrawal that made more sense than what they did. And the problem with what he's saying now is we have lost our intelligence assets in Afghanistan. We don't have a clear picture. Yet we also know that ISIS is rebuilding, Al-Qaeda is rebuilding. I guess you're going to have to replay that clip if we have another 9/11 or Pulse nightclub or, God forbid, San Bernardino type attack.
Word is, according to Scott Mann, who did more work along with you to get people out when the military left, he said not only is Al-Qaeda back better than ever, bigger than ever, but bin Laden's son is back as an Al-Qaeda officer in Afghanistan. It must be maddening for a guy like you to put his life on the line on that very ground.
And Brian, the Pentagon's own report, these China analysts, they're China watchers, highlighted in this report how China on state media blasting towards Taiwan and their embassies all over the world pointed to that withdrawal and said, this is evidence America is on decline. We're on the rise. You better bet with us. America will not stand with you. Look what they just did to their own citizens, their own and their own people. This will have a damaging effect to our alliances all over the world for many, many years, and they won't even admit it.
And that's the problem. You don't admit it. People make mistakes. It's disastrous, but they don't even admit it. Let's talk about something else disastrous. Because our academy, men and women, students, our elites, are not vaccinated in some cases. They're being told, according to them, but not by the academies themselves, they're not getting commissions and they're not allowed to graduate. What's the truth?
Well, the Coast Guard Academy actually has kicked out a number, about a half dozen of their cadets. Look, we got to take a step back because the military keeps digging in and saying, you got to take the shots we tell you to, and orders in order. As a leader, you have to always reevaluate your orders. And the whole predicate was that it stopped the spread. You can't have people getting into submarines if they're going to infect the crew. Well, regardless of whether you have it or not, it's still spreading. That makes it a personal health decision. And on top of the recruiting crisis, on top of the military buildup from China, they cannot be in a position where they're kicking out nearly 20,000 highly trained, highly educated members of our military. We are going to force them to drop this mandate and reinstate these people in a Republican-led House Armed Services Committee in the next defense bill. I just hope that they come to some semblance of common sense before we have to do that, because people are getting hurt that are willing to die and willing to serve this country.
And it's just it's so disheartening. Do you have anyone on the Democratic side who says, hey, Mike, I hear you, I'll help you?
In quiet conversations, once we kind of walk them through, yes, of course, for good order and discipline, you have to charge the hill when you're told to, but you also have to rethink if it's worth the losses you're going to take. And it's not just a political gotcha. This is really serious. Yeah, in quiet conversations, we'll see when it comes time to vote. But I think the recruiting crisis alone is going to force the Pentagon to a more reasonable position. I can't figure out if it's the president or the Secretary of Defense or both that are so dug in on this issue.
Probably both. Congressman Michael Waltz, thanks so much. Always great to see you.